Welcome to For and Against, our weekly review of an album recently released.
And today we're talking about AC/DC's 17th record, Power Up.
A triumphant return to form after a very bad spell of mishaps. The most resilient Australians in the world have survived the death of one of their founding members, the deafness of their lead singer, house arrest, and touring with Axl Rose. The fact that they've managed to pull through and deliver a solid record that lives up to their enormous legacy is worthy of praise alone.
Now, you've talked about a return to form. May I just say that your cardigan is very much a return to stylistic form. It's an absolute delicious piece of clothing.
Like
now,
this coffee.
Tea.
Mine's coffee.
Anyway, so AC/DC are indeed back, and I basically want to say right from the start that we can't judge this album as we judge other albums. Other albums, you might give them a 10 or a 9 or a 5 if you were feeling a bit unpleasant. Do you know what I'm going to score this album? I'm going to tell you right from the start.
What?
I'm going to score it AC/DC. Because no, standard rules do not apply to this album. We're not looking for development. We're not looking for change. We're not looking for experimentation. We're looking for the sheer force of AC/DC. Sheer unplugged or plugged AC/DC. Very much plugged.
Very much plugged.
So that is why this album is AC/DC ad infinitum. It scores a very solid AC/DC.
My first listen was very pleasurable. I was imbued with confidence. I looked out the window, biting my lower lip and shaking my head as if I were in a car advert. In fact, this record made me want to go to a Porsche car dealership to waste an attendant's time trying to sell me something I clearly cannot afford. I don't even have a driver's license. But this record made me want to own a muscle car and stop at traffic lights with this booming out loudly, looking around at how pathetic everyone is because they're in a shittier car than me who is driving a Porsche with leather seats. It feeds my need to feel superior to other mortals. Is that a good thing?
Now, is this a Porsche? Is this album a Porsche? Is it a muscle car, or is it a very reliable Toyota? Which are very reliable because I've just looked it up on the internet. Apparently very reliable, boring cars. Don't know much about cars.
Yeah, you never go wrong with a Toyota.
You don't drive either.
No, but I was every time I see them, I never see a Toyota by the side of the road.
This isn't a car review.
God bless.
So, I got to say, my slight problem with this album is I like it best when it references back to old AC/DC songs, and I like it best when it makes me think of the old AC/DC classics, like Witch's Spell, which is this lovely stuttering guitar riff which makes me think of Back in Black. Beautiful. But then, do you know what I think?
What?
I think I prefer Back in Black. Why can't I listen to Back in Black again? And the thing is, because AC/DC, they don't age. They really don't. Their old songs are just always there, carved like monoliths on the moon. And it kind of, you don't need any more records from them. Why do I need this album? I don't need it. It's like Schrodinger's album, right? It didn't need to exist. It might as well not exist. And until I open the box, I don't know if it does exist or not.
Well, seriously, I don't see how this band could do anything wrong by sticking to its guns, you see. Whereas making the same record over and over again would be career suicide for most bands in this kind of landscape. It's the total opposite for AC/DC. Such is their power of their brand of rock in capital letters, and such is the shortage of it, this record has a place in the current musical landscape.
Taylor Swift. Remember when we were talking about Taylor Swift and her lovely recent album?
Yes.
Do you remember how much we liked it?
Oh, very much.
Do you remember one of the reasons we liked it is because she pared it down. She realised she wasn't going to have to tour those big stadiums and reach Rose Ed, so she made a lovely pared down, beautifully reduced album. Now, I'm not saying AC/DC should do this, because AC/DC, let's face it, aren't ever going to do this. But the fact that this is released in times of COVID, we can't go and see them, we can't go and have a lovely communal rock. What would it have been like if they'd just pared it down? Maybe this was the opportunity for them to put away the heavy guitars, put away the bagpipes, and make something just a little bit more restrained.
Yeah, no, I quite like the high voltage that they've brought to the table, but there is just this little tiny chorus that could raise some questions when trying to get through the Twitter police checkpoint, right? Now, AC/DC haven't always had the most delicate and subtle lyrics when regarding sexuality. By today's woke standards, there are lyrics that would have gotten them in hot water if millennials cared for their music. For instance, On song reflection, the chorus goes, "If you reject me, I'll take what I want. Disrespect me, and you get burned. Best keep me satisfied, or you know I'll eat you alive. If you reject me, I'll take what I want." Not exactly an anthem for consensual intercourse, I must say, but Brian Johnson recently admitted he doesn't know what woke means. If this were a young hip band, Twitter would have had them for breakfast with their goji berries and soy milk. But this is AC/DC we're talking about. The youngest person to actually pay for this record probably has had 2 divorces already and has kids who are taking out their first mortgage. So they should be able to dodge that bullet.
I'm not going to pay for this record, I must confess. I've listened to it on a streaming service very legally, so you know, I've contributed in some financial way. I would go and see them live if that were possible. I would pay my euros to go and rock out. And when they played a song from this album, I wouldn't be too annoyed. I think I probably would go to the bar. Let's be quite honest. But you know, I'd probably enjoy listening to it as I wend my way to the bar to drink an overpriced beer.
I don't think I'd be able to tell which song was on which album. I think it's just like, yeah, this is an AC/DC song. You know, is it on Black on Black? Is it on High Voltage? Or is it on Power Up? It's all the same, but in a good way, as I say. But again, without getting too precious about the lyrics, there's another one that sort of stood out, and I thought, you know what? This has to exist. Why Do They Kick You Down When You're Down is an anthem for those who weren't wise enough to sign a prenuptial agreement. It's the rant for all those men who have to part with half their earnings when the marriage hits the rocks. What better than Brian Johnson's high-pitched growl to soundtrack that painful journey from the attorneys to the home you worked so hard to pay for and now have to leave behind to move into one of those single men apartments that reek of Old Spice and Sunday morning desolation. This is the song for it.
Well, this is the album of Old Spice and desolation, really, isn't it? Let's face it, things we're very, very well used to at our house. I mean, you know, we try to keep abreast of all the trends in popular music, but what we basically like is Old Spice and riffs. So, in the end, we're for and against. I'm going to have to put my flame-shaped guitar in the camp.
Your leather boot.
My leather boot. My well-worn riff in the camp of against. I'm sorry.
I'm going to be 4. I'm even going to give it an 8 out of 10, you know, just for the fact that they've got together and delivered what is expected. What did you think of this album? Let us know in the comments section, and please tune in to the weekly review on RPS every week to hear Ben and I ramble along with Vallverdú.